What's going on guys, Aero here and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video, I want to talk to you guys about the sequel to the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. As you guys might have probably heard the news by now, but a few days ago, Nintendo did put out the official announcement that this sequel is unfortunately being delayed for a little bit until spring of next year in 2023. So originally Breath of the Wild 2 was supposed to come out this year in 2022, and this was said by Aonuma last year at E3 where he said that they're targeting for a 2022 launch, but even then his choice of words was kind of interesting with how he said they're targeting for 2022 and not that they expect it to come out this year, so it seemed like even back then they weren't super confident that the game was going to be able to make it this year, and now we finally got the official announcement that yeah, it is unfortunately being delayed to next year. Now as a big Zelda fan, of course this is upsetting because having a brand new Zelda game to play this year would have been amazing, but what I haven't seen a lot of people talking about is actually the reason why this game was delayed, because the thing is they didn't really talk about that much in the video where he just said unfortunately we're pushing back development until spring of 2023. He didn't really give a reason as to why this game was delayed, and I think that there's actually more to uncover than just what kind of a lot of people assume. So one of the reasons why people think that this game was delayed was because they needed more time to polish up the game and make it as best as it can be, and of course this could very well be a reason. I think that with all the big mainline Zelda games, we can all agree that there's a really kind of special level of magic that they really want every single one of those games to come out. You don't just release an entire new giant Zelda game like this and have it just be not a pleasant experience for the most part. They always try their best to make it as good as it can for the system that it's coming out on, so I feel like if Nintendo released a rushed out Breath of the Wild 2, a lot of people wouldn't have liked it, and especially because of how the original Breath of the Wild is already loved by so many people, so I really think that a lot of people want the sequel to be even bigger, and of course with the way that Aonuma is talking about this game with how they're expanding the world to the skies above and how you're going to have even more areas and places to go, I really do think that they're putting a ton of creativity in this game, and they probably have a lot of cool ideas and new gameplay mechanics. They even showed off a small little 5-second teaser of new gameplay footage in that announcement, and we got to see it looks like that the Master Sword is destroyed now, Link's arm is looking really crazy and stuff, so the game is definitely looking like it's going to have a lot more to it. Now another reason why people are saying that Breath of the Wild 2 was delayed was because Nintendo already has so many insane games that are coming out on the Switch this year that they don't need Breath of the Wild 2 to be out this year as well. There's already so many insane Nintendo Switch games coming out in 2022. We had Pokemon Legends Arceus, we just got Kirby and the Forgotten Land, we have Nintendo Switch Sports, we have Fire Emblem 3 Hopes, we have Mario Strikers, we have Splatoon 3, we have Xenoblade Chronicles 3, we have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet with Gen 9, we have Bayonetta 3, Mario plus Rabbids. There's so many insane games that Nintendo doesn't need to have Zelda this year. And while this may be something that a lot of people think about, I actually don't think that this was the reason why Breath of the Wild 2 was delayed either. If anything, they would have impressed a lot of their investors if they still managed to get Breath of the Wild 2 out this year, but I don't think that this was the reason, and they definitely don't really care if they have a lot of other good games that are also coming out this year. I actually think that the reason that Breath of the Wild 2 was delayed till spring of next year is because Nintendo is planning to release this game alongside new hardware. Now I know what you guys are thinking, Nintendo just released the Nintendo Switch OLED model, there's no way they already have another new Nintendo Switch system, but I actually have a couple of reasons as to why I think that this could be the case, so let me show you guys why I feel that this could actually be the reason why Breath of the Wild 2 was delayed. Now the first thing is that it seems like that Nintendo has a pattern for when they decide to release new hardware, and that seems to be every 2 years. In 2017 we got the original Nintendo Switch, 2 years later we got the Nintendo Switch Lite, which was a brand new system that was smaller and just allowed you to be able to focus on portable play. 2 years later we got the Nintendo Switch OLED model, which had a brighter, cleaner OLED screen, it had some better speakers and some other smaller changes to it, and then 2 years after that would put us into next year with 2023. Now last year, right before the Nintendo Switch OLED model was about to release, there was actually a special Bloomberg report that came out that said a bunch of Nintendo Switch developers already had Nintendo Switch 4K dev kits and that they were working on them, and they've had them since 2020. Now some of these developers were even named, so Zynga here confirmed that they did in fact have a 4K Nintendo Switch dev kit, and then really once all of this information started coming out, they actually confirmed right away that they actually didn't have that and that rumor didn't exist, which was really kind of suspicious, and a lot of people did seem to kind of think that this was probably because Nintendo reached out to them and said you're not authorized to talk about this, you're not supposed to mention this, and then they just started denying that they had the 4K dev kits in the first place. Now, Nintendo actually made a tweet about this where they said, "We're aware of a report that came out claiming that we're making a 4K compatible Nintendo Switch. We're here to tell you that we have no such plans and that no other system like that is currently in development." So of course a lot of people just started saying like, okay, here's Nintendo telling us, now we don't have to worry about this. But the thing is, of course they have to tell this if a report like this is coming out. If Nintendo really is secretly making a 4K Nintendo Switch in the background, they don't want people to take their sales away from the Nintendo Switch OLED model and the other current Nintendo systems, because a lot of people would just say like, oh, there's rumors now that Nintendo's actually going to release a 4K Switch. I guess I'll just save my money until that system comes out. Nintendo doesn't want you to do that. They want you to buy the OLED model and then probably want you to buy the 4K model if it comes out either. So they basically just want you to give as much money to them as possible. So that's why they're just going to deny this. I mean, we're talking about when Nintendo denied that the DS Lite even existed a week before that system was announced. So of course they're just going to say that the system doesn't exist until they officially reveal it. Now, even before the Nintendo Switch OLED model came out, there were so many theories about this 4K Nintendo Switch Pro and that it was going to have upscaling capabilities and it was going to be this really cool looking system. And of course the OLED model didn't turn out to be that because it's still using the same internals and is still just as powerful as a normal Nintendo Switch. So a lot of people actually have a theory that Nintendo was planning to have a Nintendo Switch Pro with these 4K upscaling capabilities and all of that when it was originally supposed to come out. However, because of the chip shortage that is going on because of the pandemic and everything, it's very hard for them to be able to produce these, and because of that they just decided to release an OLED model instead, and that's why they're kind of holding back on all of this until the chips are more readily available and they can produce more of the actual systems that they want to get out. And it's very possible that this could actually be a reason. It's still very difficult to be able to find Xbox Series X's and PlayStation 5s as well because of the chip shortage, so maybe that is something that actually had a big impact on the new Nintendo Switch. Now, one of the biggest pieces of information that we have for why a new Nintendo Switch could be coming out is actually straight from Nvidia themselves. Now, if you don't know, Nvidia supplies Nintendo with the components to be able to make the Nintendo Switch, and recently Nvidia had a giant kind of server hack that happened and a whole bunch of their internal data was leaked. And one of the things that happened to get leaked was an NVN2 folder with a special NVN DLSS driver, and this is kind of like the stuff that Nintendo uses with Nvidia to be able to make the Nintendo Switch. And this folder had a lot of kind of information about being able to have upscaling technologies and things like that. So it seems like that Nvidia has already been working on kind of this stuff for a new Nintendo Switch. Now, we can't tell if this is for an entirely new Nintendo Switch, like a Nintendo Switch 2 or like a next-gen Nintendo Switch, or if it's for a more updated version of the current Nintendo Switch, like a Nintendo Switch Pro. But either way, I do think that if there is going to be a new next-gen Nintendo Switch, it is still going to be compatible with all the Nintendo Switch games that we already have, because Nintendo did kind of hint at that the next Nintendo system is still going to have backwards compatibility. They talked about that in the most recent Nintendo investors meeting, so I do think that it's still going to be compatible. So because of that, if they do release like a next-gen Nintendo Switch, they can still keep it going with the current Nintendo Switch because every game that does come out for it is still going to work with both. I think that the new one will probably just have some better graphics and performance. And finally, the last thing that I just have is that Nintendo loves to have a new hardware launch alongside a brand new Zelda game. They've done this so many times in the past that it would just make a lot of sense to release a brand new Zelda game alongside a brand new Nintendo Switch. Like when the Wii came out, we had Twilight Princess come out with it. When the Nintendo Switch came out, we had Breath of the Wild come out with it. When I think the new Nintendo 3DS came out, we had Majora's Mask 3D come out with it. So they always like to do that. I think even when the Nintendo Switch Lite came out, we had Link's Awakening. So I just think that launching Breath of the Wild 2 alongside a new Nintendo Switch system would make a ton of sense, especially if it comes with a lot of features to make Breath of the Wild 2 look even better. And so yeah, there you go guys, that is the possibility of a new Nintendo Switch system potentially coming out with Breath of the Wild 2, and maybe that being the reason why the game was delayed. If you guys enjoyed this video, then definitely be sure to click that like button, and also comment down below and let me know what you guys think of this. How do you guys feel about this potential theory? Do you guys think that this could actually be the reason why Breath of the Wild 2 was delayed? Why do you think it was delayed? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. If you're new to this channel, then please be sure to subscribe. I'm definitely going to have some more Nintendo content in the future, so definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Click on that bell to become a part of the notification squad. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.